After decades of working, saving, and making careful financial decisions, cash feels safe in retirement. There are no daily price swings, no complicated statements, and no uncertainty about what your balance is today. For many retirees, that sense of stability brings real peace of mind. But this is where a quiet risk often begins. Safety, when defined only by a stable number on a bank statement, can slowly erode without drawing attention. Today's retirees hold more cash than generations before them, facing lower yields, longer retirements, and steadily rising living costs. This isn't an argument against cash. It's about understanding balance in a very different retirement reality. Cash provides something that becomes increasingly valuable in retirement: a sense of control. After years of managing careers, family responsibilities, and financial uncertainty, knowing exactly how much money is available can feel deeply reassuring. There are no moving parts, no market headlines to interpret, and no surprises from one month to the next. Liquidity also plays a major role. Cash is immediately accessible, making everyday expenses, medical costs, or unexpected repairs feel manageable. That simplicity reduces decision fatigue and removes the need to sell assets during uncomfortable moments. For many retirees, this ease translates directly into emotional relief. There is also a psychological comfort in seeing money that does not fluctuate. Even temporary declines can feel more stressful in retirement when income may no longer come from work. Cash eliminates that visible volatility. Used this way, cash serves an important purpose. It acts as a buffer, a short-term cushion that supports stability and confidence. Problems arise only when that buffer quietly becomes the entire plan, rather than one part of a broader retirement strategy. The main risk of holding too much cash in retirement is not market volatility. It's the gradual loss of purchasing power. Inflation doesn't cause sudden drops or alarming headlines. Instead, it works quietly, reducing what your money can actually buy over time. You see it in everyday expenses. Groceries cost a little more each year. Utility bills slowly rise. Healthcare, in particular, tends to increase faster than many retirees expect. Each change feels small on its own, often easy to absorb in the moment. That's why inflation is so easy to overlook. Your cash balance looks stable. The number on the statement doesn't move. But the lifestyle that balance supports is slowly shrinking. Over longer retirements, this effect compounds. What feels manageable in the first few years can become restrictive a decade or two later. The loss isn't obvious, but it's persistent. This is what makes inflation especially challenging for retirees. It doesn't feel like risk until it has already reshaped long-term financial comfort. Retirement today looks very different from what it once was. For many people, it is no longer a 10 or 15-year phase at the end of life. Retiring in your early to mid-60s often means planning for 20, 25, or even 30 years without employment income. This longer timeline changes how financial decisions play out. Cash can feel reliable in the early years, when expenses are predictable and balances still appear healthy. But over decades, the quiet erosion caused by inflation becomes far more powerful. What seems like a small loss in purchasing power each year adds up, gradually narrowing financial flexibility. The challenge is that cash is designed for short-term certainty, not long-term endurance. It works well for immediate needs and near-term stability, but retirement demands resources that can support spending far into the future. This creates a mismatch. Using short-term tools to fund long-term needs can slowly weaken even careful plans, especially as time, the one factor no retiree can control, continues to pass. Many retirees, hold large amounts of cash to protect themselves from sequence risk. That's the possibility that market declines early in retirement could permanently damage a portfolio. That concern is certainly understandable, and managing early losses does matter. However, avoiding market swings does not mean avoiding risk altogether. In fact, it often means trading one type of risk for another. When assets remain too conservative for too long, a different danger emerges: the risk that purchasing power fails to keep up with rising costs. This creates a form of timing risk that is less visible. While markets fluctuate in the short term, inflation works continuously. Staying entirely in cash during the early years of retirement can lock in low growth at precisely the time when long-term income needs are being set. In some cases, this approach can actually backfire. Plans may appear stable at first, but gradually lose their ability to support future spending. Retirement risk isn't just about what happens in markets. It's also about how early decisions shape financial resilience decades down the line. One of the least discussed limitations of cash in retirement is income. Cash may preserve a stable balance, but it does not meaningfully create new income to replace a paycheck. For retirees who rely on withdrawals to cover living expenses, this distinction becomes increasingly important over time. Each withdrawal reduces the remaining balance, and inflation raises the amount that must be withdrawn in future years. These two forces work together, quietly accelerating erosion. What begins as modest, manageable spending can gradually place more pressure on the same pool of savings. This highlights an important difference. Stability of value means the account balance doesn't fluctuate. Sustainability of income means the resources can reliably support spending year after year. Cash offers the first, but struggles with the second. Over long retirements, income durability matters more than short-term stability. Without some mechanism to support ongoing purchasing power, even conservative spending can lead to uncomfortable trade-offs later. Not suddenly, but slowly, as options become more limited. Cash does play an important and necessary role in a well-structured retirement plan. Its greatest strength is not growth, but readiness. As an emergency buffer, cash provides immediate access to funds when unexpected expenses arise, without forcing difficult decisions at the wrong time. Cash also works well as a short-term spending reserve. Holding several months, or even a few years, of planned expenses in cash can reduce stress and create flexibility. This approach allows retirees to meet day-to-day needs with confidence, regardless of broader economic conditions. There is also a psychological benefit. Knowing that essential expenses are covered by readily available funds can bring calm during periods of uncertainty. That emotional stability helps retirees stay disciplined and avoid reactive choices. The key is understanding what cash is not designed to do. It is not a growth engine, and it is not meant to carry the full weight of long-term retirement needs. When used intentionally, cash supports stability. When relied on too heavily, it quietly limits future options rather than protecting them. In retirement, safety is often defined as avoiding fluctuation. But a more resilient definition looks beyond short-term stability and focuses on the ability to meet future needs with confidence. True safety means being able to support your lifestyle not just today, but many years from now. That usually requires balance. Stability is important for near-term expenses and peace of mind. Income matters for covering ongoing living costs, and some level of growth helps offset inflation over long periods. No single element can carry the full responsibility on its own. This way of thinking shifts the focus away from chasing perfect solutions and toward thoughtful planning. It emphasizes principles rather than products, understanding why each part of a plan exists and what role it plays over time. When safety is defined this way, decisions become clearer and less emotional. The goal is not to eliminate uncertainty, but to prepare for it calmly. That mindset supports flexibility, discipline, and confidence throughout a long and evolving retirement. Cash is useful in retirement, and it serves an important purpose. It provides flexibility, emotional comfort, and short-term stability. But on its own, it is incomplete. When relied on too heavily, cash can quietly expose retirees to risks that unfold slowly over time. These risks are not dramatic, and they rarely feel urgent. That's why they deserve calm, thoughtful planning rather than reactive decisions. Retirement security is built through clarity, balance, and long-term perspective, not by chasing comfort in the moment. If you value rational, steady guidance designed for real retirement timelines, consider subscribing to Retire Secure. This channel is focused on helping you think clearly about retirement decisions, with discipline, balance, and peace of mind at the center.